Hi everybody out there on YouTube. I'm going to show you another deck today. This one is called Urge to Feed. It is a vampire deck, a vampire spirit deck. And we're going to go ahead and get started. Now the first thing I'm going to show you the lands. This land is called Tainted Field. It adds either a plains or a swamp to your deck. But you can only use this ability if you control a swamp. Otherwise, it only adds colorless mana to your deck, and I have 2 of those. Then we have 2 Evolving Wilds, which is basically tap sacrifice, and you can search for any color land you want. We have $12 swamps. And 9 plains. Then we'll move on to the spells. We have what is called Spectral Possession, and it's put 3 1/1 spirit creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield. We have 2 of those. It costs 3 to put out, or 6 if you don't have any planes. And then this is the spirit token that goes with it. Then we have a card called Deathly Grasp. It costs a plains and a swamp plus X. Death Grasp deals X damage to target creature or player, and you gain X life. And it's whatever you pay for X. Then we have Mortify. Is basically destroy a target creature and an enchantment. It costs you 3. It costs you 1, a plains, and a swamp. This is a card called Unmake. This you can either pay with plains or swamps or a combination, and it's exile target creature. This card is called Field of Souls. It costs you 4, 2 of anything, and then 2 plains. Whenever a non-token creature is put into the graveyard from play, you may put a 1/1 white spirit creature token onto the battlefield. So basically, anytime anything dies that's not a token, you get a creature. This is called Absorb Viz. It costs you 7, 6 of anything, and then a swamp. Target player loses 4 life and you gain 4 life, or you can use it for its basic land cycle, which is pay 1 in a swamp, and you may search for a basic land card. This is Ancient Craving. It costs you 3. It's 3 of anything in a swamp. You draw 3 cards and you lose 3 life. This is called Urge to Feed. It's 2 swamps. Target creature gets -3/-3 until end of turn. You may tap any number of non-tap vampires you control, and you get to put a +1/+1 counter on them. This one is Mark of a Vampire. It costs 4 and 3 of anything in a swamp. Enchant creature gets +2/+2 and has lifelink, which basically means whatever damage it does, you gain that much life. This is Sorin's Thirst. It costs 2 swamps. It deals 2 damage to target creature and you gain 2 life. So you see how that losing 3 life to draw 3 cards doesn't really hurt you too badly. This is Zealous Persecution. It costs you a swamp and a plains, and until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1, and creatures your opponents control get -1/-1. This is 2 and a plains, and it's Lingering Souls. You put 2 1/1 white soldier creature tokens on with flying onto the battlefield, and it has flashback, which means you can play it from the graveyard. You pay the 1 in the swamp, and you get the creatures again, but you have to exile the card from the graveyard. This costs 2, 1 in a swamp. It's Decompose. Exile up to 3 target creature cards from a single graveyard. And then, of course, the last one is Vampire Bites. It costs you 1 swamp, but it has a kicker of 3. Target creature gets +3/+0 until end of turn. If it was kicked, that creature gains lifelink until end of turn. So basically, you pay a separate cost to give the creature lifelink. And then on to the creatures. First one I'm going to show you is Dusk Hunter Bat. It's a 1/1. It costs you 2, 1 in a swamp. But it has Bloodthirst. If you do damage to an opponent the same turn that he comes out, he gets a +1/+1 on him. So he becomes a 2/2 bat instead of 1/1 bat. We have 2 of those. We have Doom Traveler. He's a 1/1 that basically his job is to die. You pay 1 plains, and whenever Doom Traveler dies, you put a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying onto the battlefield. So basically, you kill your little 1/1 for flying 1/1. This guy is Vampire Nighthawk. He has flying, death touch, and lifelink. He costs 3, 1 and 2 plains. Lifelink is whenever you do damage to a creature or an opponent, you gain that much life. Death touch is no matter how much damage he doesn't do to that creature, it still dies. Of course, unless it's indestructible. This is Vampire Outcast. It costs 4, 2 and 2 swamps. It also has Bloodthirst, but it's a Bloodthirst of 2, which means that it gets 2 1/1 counters if an opponent takes damage the turn it comes out, and he also has lifelink. Then we have Mesmeric Fiend. He costs 2. He's a 1/1, anything in a swamp. And when he enters the battlefield, target opponent reveals his or her hand, and you choose a non-land card from it. Exile that card. But when he dies, it goes back into their hand. Then we have Child of Night. She's a 2/1 vampire that costs 2, 1 in a swamp, with lifelink. Then we have Sengri Vampire. He costs 5. He's a 4/4 flyer. But whenever a creature dealt damage by him dies, he gets 1/1 counter on him. So he's a pump of a vampire. Start killing creatures quickly with him, and he becomes a big flying butthead. This is Ogre Slumlord. Whenever a non-target creature dies, you may put a 1/1 black rat creature token onto the battlefield, and rats you control have death touch. Now, I don't have a rat token for this deck, and I actually have him in a rat deck. People hate him in a rat deck. This is Vampire Lacer. He costs 1. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life unless your opponent has 10 or less life, and he's a 2/2. Then you have Phantom's General. Creatures you control get +1/+1. And he's a 2/3 and he costs you 4. So he's a nice little card to have in the deck. Twilight Dover costs 3. Whenever a creature token leaves the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Twilight Dover. And then pay 3, remove a 1/1 counter from Twilight Dover, and put 2 white flying spirit creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield. So he's a way to get creatures. This is Revenant Patricianer. He costs 5. Whenever he enters the battlefield, if white was spent to cast him, target player skips his or her next combat phase. But he can't block. Wall of Omens, when is a defender, it can attack. You pay 2 to get him, but when he enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card. This is Butcher of Malakir. This is my favorite vampire in the whole deck. He is a 5/4. He costs 7 to get out. He is flying, and whenever Butcher of Malakir or another creature I control leaves the battlefield, my opponents have to sacrifice a creature. So if they start taking my creatures, they're going to lose theirs too. This is Mausoleum Guard. It's 3, and when she dies, you put 2 1/1 white spirit to creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield. So pretty much she's there to die for the creature she creates later on. This is Blood Rage Vampire, which has the Bloodthirst of 1. It costs you 3. Gatekeeper of Malacure costs you 2 swamps, but it has a kicker, and if you do kick it, target opponent has to sacrifice a creature. And then the last creature we have, it costs you 3. It's called Fiend Hunter. Whenever Fiend Hunter enters the battlefield, you may exile another target creature, and when he leaves the battlefield, you return that exiled creature. Now, the last card in the deck is actually a Planeswalker. It's Sorin, Lord of Innistrad. He costs you 4, 2 of anything, 1 plains in the swamp. He starts out with 3 loyalty counters, which is basically life. So if somebody thanks him for 3, he's gone. But he's pumpable. You hit +1, and you put a 1/1 black vampire creature token with lifelink onto the battlefield. Now, that's the only one that gives him loyalty counters. Now, if you take 2 off of him, you get an emblem with creatures you control get +1/+0. So, you take a few of those off, your creatures are getting +2, +3, +0. Now, if you use his last ability, which is 6, destroy up to 3 target creatures and or other planeswalkers. Return each card put into a graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. So basically, if you keep him alive and get him up to that 6 or 7, just to keep him for the creatures, you get to take other people's creatures and put them onto your field. Well, that is the Sorin deck. It's called Hunt and Feed. It was a pre-construct that came out. It was the Sorin into Bolt deck. If you have any questions or concerns, please comment below. Thank you for watching the video.